Sabotaging patterns. What are they? Why do you do them? And you continue to do them? And ultimately, what can you do to actually address the root cause of the sabotaging patterns? I'm about to answer all of those questions in this podcast. So I look forward to showing you how to do that. If you don't know who I am, my name is Lewis Huckstep. I'm a coach. I've coached 5,500 people to find their purpose, heal wounds, traumas, triggers, create a life that they love. And a part of that process is to address the sabotaging patterns. So I'm going to be very practical in this video, so I'm going to break it down into steps, so you might want to pause, take some notes, and really sit with the questions I'm going to ask you towards the end. I'm going to do a little process with you in this video towards the end, so you can actually become aware of what's causing the sabotaging patterns. So let's rock and roll. So there's a quote that I love. You never self-sabotage. All you do is come back into alignment with how or who you truly are, or who you see yourself to be. So you never self-sabotage, you just realign with back to who you see yourself to be. Kind of butchered that quote. So essentially what I'm saying with that is when you're self-sabotaging, you're just playing out your conditioning. Now I'm going to come back to that. So there's 4 key pillars to why someone would self-sabotage, and I'm going to be covering 2 of them today. So I'm not going to do all 4 of them because we'll be here for too long, but there are 4. I'll tell you what they all are right now, and then we're going to dive deep into the 2 that actually plays out most of the time for people. So let's rock and roll. So what are the 4 ways or reasons why someone would self-sabotage? Let's break them down. Number 1 is you're actually not being authentic. I know that sounds a bit woo-woo, a bit cringe because that gets thrown around all the time. What do I mean by that? You are not being authentic. When I say that, I mean you are not living to your values and your purpose. You're not actually doing the things that you actually intrinsically, authentically want to do. I talk about values all the time, and it gets mentioned almost every single video that I record because it's so important. Your values are the areas of life that intrinsically fulfill you. Whenever you hear the words, you have to, you ought to, you got to, you should, you must, you're supposed to, or some version of those words, someone is projecting their values and beliefs onto someone else. Because in reality, you don't have to do jack shit. You don't have to listen to them. Why do you have to do that? They're projecting their views and values onto you. And this happens a lot with parents, with society, with religion, with social media. And if you listen to someone's projections, you're trying to be number 2 of someone else. You're not being your true self. And some of the feedback that you'll receive if you do that, if you listen to someone's projections, is you will procrastinate, you will hesitate, you will doubt yourself, you will beat yourself up, your self-worth will go down. It's like, I'll use an example. Say someone projected onto me and said, Lewis, you should go travel the world. You should go to music festivals. You should go party. You should go drinking, go live your life, YOLO, that type of thing. And say I listened to them because I didn't understand it and I didn't value myself and I didn't know my own values. If I went and did those things, I would fucking hate them. Because I used to do that when I was younger, because I didn't understand this stuff when I was younger. And I did that, and I was miserable. I was unhappy. And what I did is, quote, sabotage those goals of partying and traveling. Because why? Because I don't want to fucking do them. Crazy concept. When you know your values and you live to them, you're inspired from within. I use this quote all the time. The need for motivation is a symptom of an uninspired goal. So if you are, quote, lacking motivation, or you're just not fulfilled in what you're doing, you don't know your values and your purpose, or you're not living in alignment with it. So the first thing when it comes to sabotage is know your values and purpose and live in alignment with them. Crazy concept, right? Be who you truly are and do the things you actually want to do. Crazy concept. So we're actually not going deeper on that today. That's just the first one. The 2 that we're going to be diving in today is limiting beliefs and trauma. So I won't go through them now because that's what this main video is. So we're going to be diving into that in a second. The last one is skills. It's a skill deficiency, because sabotage can come from you actually not knowing what the fuck to do. You're just overwhelmed. A confused mind does not take action. As an example, say you've never done business before, and I go up to you and say, go start a business, go make money running a business, and you've never done it before. You are lacking so many skills of how to make an offer, how to build a product, how to market yourself, how to sell, how to productize, how to systemize, how to hire, how to delegate, how to do all these. There's like so many skills you got to learn, so you're lacking the skills. It's like if you don't know how to be fit and healthy and someone says, go get fit and healthy, and you don't know what to do, you're doing the best of what you have. You're just lacking the skills. So you can, quote, sabotage your goals because you don't know what the fuck you're doing. You're not doing the right things, and that's okay. So I'm not going to be diving down into the values and purpose and the skill deficiency on this podcast. I'm actually going to be touching on the values and trauma. So with that being said, let's rock and roll. So What is self-sabotaging patterns when it comes to your beliefs and your trauma? Think of this. Think of a computer or a phone. So I'm filming this on a computer, on a camera right now. So think of a computer or a phone. A computer has programming on the computer. It needs programming for it to function. Without the programming, it's just like a scrap of fucking metal and plastic, right? So you need the programming for the computer to run. You have the same with your mind. You have certain beliefs and conditioning and coding for you to operate, for you to like function, move, talk, listen, everything, live life, right? However, just like a computer, you can download a virus onto the computer. And what happens? It starts to shut down. It starts to malfunction. It starts to freeze. It starts to, quote, sabotage. That's the same thing as limiting beliefs. So beliefs are limiting beliefs. It's in the name of it. It's a belief that does not serve you. It might be, I'm not enough. I'm not lovable. I'm not good with money. No one loves me. No one wants to be my friends. I'm a loser. I'm a failure. I will never be successful. Whatever your belief is, insert what yours is. If you're self-aware enough, because I'll tell you the 4 ways to find them in this video as well, is comment it down below. What's a belief right now that you're wanting to work through, and I can actually show you where you can do that. So it's your conditioning. It's everything to do with your mind. Your conditioning is what results in the behaviors that you play out. And this is the thing when it comes to beliefs. You make your beliefs true. There's 2 traits to the ego. Your ego, just so you know, it's not a bad thing. Think of the ego is the coding to your computer. It's the identity of yourself. It includes your empowering belief and your disempowering beliefs or your limiting beliefs. It's not good or bad. Your ego is not a bad thing. It's just the identity of yourself. So the traits of the ego is number 1, it proves itself right. That's where it becomes very limiting and reinforcing. It's like if you believe that all men are assholes, guess what type of men you're going to find in your life and attract? You're going to attract those assholes. If you believe that you're not worthy of a relationship, if you believe that money is the source of all evil, if you believe whatever you believe, you make it true. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy. I'm going to prove to myself that I'm a fucking loser just to make myself right. How limiting is that? And that's the slippery part, right? And number 2, the ego avoids pain. So this is why when people ask you questions or challenge you in an area where you may be insecure, you've got some trauma you haven't addressed yet, you get defensive, you deflect, you disassociate, you try to change the topic, you attack them, whatever it is. And I've got the traits of the ego, I'm not going through that today. But that's essentially how it plays out. So limiting beliefs. The beliefs or condition or coding on your computer is what results in the behaviors and actions that you take or don't take. So that's the first part. The second is trauma. Now I'm going to dive a bit deeper into this. So there's 3 things. So and I talk about this all the time in my content, so listen to it again. Number 1 is trauma. Now you could also insert limiting beliefs in that. So you can say trauma or limiting beliefs. You can do both for this process. You've got trauma or limiting beliefs. Now trauma, for me, my definition, it's a moment in time when something was painful, too much, or not enough. Something was bad. Something was wrong. Something shouldn't have happened. It was too much for you or not enough for you. Essentially, someone did something or didn't do something that was bad, wrong, or painful, or too much, or not enough. That's essentially what trauma is. And it's going to be a specific word, which I'll do the exercise with you towards the end of this exercise or this podcast. It will be a specific word. It will be a behavior or a character trait. An action or an inaction. Someone did something or didn't do something that was bad, painful, wrong, too much, not enough. And it's going to be a 1-word answer. The mastery of inner work, of healing, is to find what that word is. I'll give you a list later. It could be abandonment, rejection, criticism, judgment, dismissal, lying, anger, invalidation, all the things. You got to find what it is. And I'll help you do that in a moment. Second to that, this is the sabotaging part. So trauma and limiting beliefs. Now you've got coping mechanisms, your coping strategies. This is the one that creates the sabotaging patterns that keep you stuck. Sabotaging patterns or coping mechanisms or coping strategies, it's something that you do to overcome, protect, and hide the trauma. I'll get into that as an example: people pleasing, overworking, disassociating, smoking a cigarette, eating food, overworking, getting angry, yelling, screaming, whatever yours is. You will have a coping mechanism that you've picked up that helps you get through, overcome, protect, and hide the trauma. Third is a trigger. A trigger is something that reminds you of the trauma and it activates the coping mechanism. So when you perceive something that reminds you of a trauma you haven't integrated and healed yet, it will trigger your coping mechanism. One of my most used quotes that I always use is nothing triggers you, it reveals what's inside of you. So when you get triggered, it's revealing a wound, trauma, or limiting belief that you have not addressed yet. So the coping mechanism is the one that creates the sabotaging patterns. So, and there's actually two sides. So we get a little bit deeper now. There's a lot of depth to my work, which I love. So there's two ways a trigger plays out. And now I'll actually use an example so you can use it for yourself. Let's use rejection or abandonment. Most people have a rejection or abandonment wound at some level because it's one of the ones that most people pick up at some point. So let's use rejection or abandonment. Now let's say your coping mechanism is anxious. You get anxiety or fear. Same thing, but let's use anxiety. You might disassociate, run, flight, hide, whatever it is. Let's use anxiety. So rejection or abandonment, anxiety, and then the trigger, remember, is something that reminds you of the wound and activates the coping mechanism. In this case, when someone rejects you or abandons you, or you perceive someone to do that, you will get triggered into anxiety. So when you get rejected or abandoned, you feel anxious. That's how it plays out. So there's two sides of the coin when it comes to your triggers. First side of the coin, is essentially what I just said. When you perceive someone or something that reminds you of a trauma, it will trigger you into a coping mechanism. Nothing triggers you, it reveals what's inside of you. Here's the other side of the coin. You're going to do things or not do things to protect yourself from experiencing the trauma again. Okay? I'll give you an example. Let's use rejection again. So you don't get rejected, you may not ask someone out on a date, or you might not date anyone anymore. You may not set a boundary. You might not post content on social media because people might reject you and judge you and criticize you. You might not have a tough conversation. You might not walk away from someone. You might not break up with someone. You'll do or not do things that will protect you from experiencing it again. And this is what creates the quote coping mechanisms, the sabotaging patterns. I don't know why. I just don't do it. I just get in my own head. I just get stuck. I just don't, whatever. You're just unconsciously protecting yourself from something. And that's okay. That's part of the healing journey. Come work with me. I'll help you work through that. I'll use a live example because I had this, I think, 2 days ago. My loving brother, Tommy, I don't think he listens to my podcast, but Tom, my brother, if you're watching this, sup, how you doing? So I called him, I think it was 2 days ago. It's like January 3rd right now. So I think like January 1st or 2nd. Happy New Year. How you doing? All the good stuff. And I said, what are some of your goals for 2025? And he said, I want to get healthier. I want to work on myself. I want to do this. I'm like, awesome. I love it. And he said, and I'd like to start posting content soon, showing up online. I said, awesome. Because I post a lot of content. So I thought that was exciting. I said, awesome. I said, when are you going to? He's like, oh, I knew you were going to tell me that. I know you're going to ask me. I know you're going to do this. I said, great. And it's like, well, tell me, and I've taught him this concepts, the triggers, the wounds, the trauma, and all that stuff. And I asked him this question. What are you protecting yourself from by not posting? What are you scared of happening by you posting content? And he knew it straight away because he knows his work now. It was judgment. So he has a wound around judgment. He's been judged before. Now, sorry, Tom, but I love you. But he's had wounds around judgment, the way that he looked. He was an overweight kid and he got judged for that. He got bullied for that. So he is protecting himself from being judged by not posting content. Now, I started to help him balance it, and I did a bit of my work with him to help remove the emotional charge towards the judgment. Because let me wrap this up because we're going to talk for too long. Trauma, the moment in time that something was too much or not enough, the coping mechanism or coping strategy. This is also called shadows, by the way. This is called traumatic reactions. This is called there's other words for it. And then third is a trigger. And again, you'll also protect yourself from experiencing it. So how do you overcome this? So this is kind of, like I said at the start, I'm going to tell you what it is. So hopefully you understand now. Your sabotaging patterns are coming from your limiting beliefs you haven't addressed and your trauma you haven't healed. That's what's playing out. And again, there's also the values and purpose that I mentioned and the lack of skills. So you need those two pieces as well. But for this conversation, limiting beliefs and trauma. So how do you overcome this? You heal the trauma. You heal the wound. Once you heal the wound and you do a process on the wound, the trait, the behavior, or the limiting belief, guess what? The coping mechanisms and triggers go away. You don't get triggered anymore. I used to get triggered so much because everyone does when you start your journey, right? And I used to get triggered all the time. Now, I've been consciously been doing inner work for about 10 years now. I'm probably 5% as triggered as I used to be. because I'd done a lot of work since then. Now, there's always more. I still get triggered. I still got things to work on. But once you heal the wound, you won't get triggered by it anymore, which is really cool, which helps out with relationships, with business, with leadership, all the thing. And you won't have that resistance to doing things. Because picture this. Picture you got a thorn in your arm. So there's a thorn there. That's trauma or limiting belief. So what you do to protect and hide the thorn, you're going to put a barrier around it. You put a fence around it. You're going to try to protect it. You'll get triggered when someone touches it or gets close to it, or you'll try to stop people from touching it. Well, what if you just pulled the thorn out? What if you just went and pulled it out? What if you just did that? Crazy concept. What if you just healed the wound or removed the limiting belief? So all your coping mechanisms, sabotaging patterns go away. Crazy concept, right? Pretty cool. That's essentially what you want to do. So for you to stop repeating your patterns, your sabotaging patterns, and where it shows up in business, relationships, health, wealth, wherever it shows up in, all you want to do is find the limiting belief or the trauma, the wound, and do a process on it. Now, for my clients, if you're watching this, it would be my ego dissolving process. That's how we remove limiting beliefs. And second is my balancing process. That's how we heal trauma. And I have got some incredible testimonials of people that have been sexually abused for 5 years from their dad and healed that in one session. Pretty crazy, right? And she'd been doing trauma therapy for 30 years. Crazy concept, right? I've had people remove limiting beliefs every day, heal through wounds every day. It's crazy. It's amazing. And then you feel lighter, you feel healthier, you feel freer, you feel more authentic. You're not scared of being your true self more, and you get triggered less, and your coping mechanisms and sabotaging patterns go away. So my invitation to you is to do some inner work, to find where you get triggered, what wounds, limiting beliefs you haven't addressed yet, and address them. And then your triggers and coping mechanisms and sabotaging patterns will go away. If I had a mic, that would be when I would drop it. Now, let's actually do an exercise. So I'm going to help you find some of your triggers right now in this video, and then I'll link the dots for you so you can recognize where it plays out for you, okay? So if you've done this exercise with me before, do it again or use someone else. So I'm going to use your parents. Now, you don't have to, if you didn't have parents in your life, you can still use them, or whoever played that role for you, or you can use anyone. You can use your current partner, you can use an ex-partner, you can use someone you don't like. It does not matter. But I'm going to start with your parents. Try to your parents if you can. If not, use a partner, either a current partner you're dating or an ex-partner or anyone. It doesn't matter. Just pick someone. So I'm going to start with dad. Again, picture dad or whoever played that role, or you can pick a partner or an ex-partner. It doesn't matter. So we're going to use dad. In one word, what's the one thing you dislike most about dad? It will be a character trait or a behavior. He did something or didn't do something that was wrong or painful or too much or not enough. Find the word to describe to answer the question. Was he angry? Was he dismissing? Was he controlling? Was he manipulating? Was he angry? Was he a liar? What was the thing? And I want you to answer that 3 times. So find 3 words to answer that question for dad. And the other ways you can ask the question, what's the one thing you dislike about this person? What's the one thing that triggers you most about this person? Or what's the one thing you wish could change about this person? So it's the same question, just worded differently. And I want you to find 3 words. What are those 3 words? And I want you to leave it in the comments below. What are those 3 words that you dislike most, that you wish could change, or that triggers you most about dad? Pause the video if you need to keep looking. We're going to do the same thing. Do it for mum. Same process, do it for mum. Think of mum, or again, use a partner or an ex-partner, use someone, doesn't matter. What's the one thing you dislike most about mum? What's the one thing you wish could change about mum? What's the one thing that triggers you most about mum? Use one-word answers to find it. It will be a character trait or a behavior. I guarantee you. It will be something that she did or did not do that was too much, not enough, or painful for you. Once you have your 3 words, comment them down below. And pause this video if you need more time. I'm obviously speaking quite quickly. So find those words. Something they were unloving, they were cruel, they were lying, they were manipulating, suppressing, they were absent, they were invalidating. There will be something that they did or did not do. Once you have your words, so pause the video, find your words, and then keep going with this video. Once you have those words, I'm assuming you've got them now. Guess what? Those are wounds of yours. Those are, quote, traumas of yours. Guess what? You have coping mechanisms that help you overcome, protect, and hide those things. And you will get triggered when someone does these things to you. Nothing triggers you. It reveals what's inside of you. Great. And then you will then have sabotaging patterns which will protect you from experiencing these things again. So you might not open up in relationships. You might not take the action in business. You might not fire someone. You might not hire someone. You might not continue the diet or the training regimen. You will do something to protect yourself from experiences again. It gets even deeper. This is a part of you haven't learned to love. So you're going to shame yourself and beat yourself up for this part of who you are because you haven't learned to love it yet. It gets super deep. I could talk about this for hours because I love this conversation. So my invitation to you is to do a healing process on those traits. And obviously there's more. There's 4,628 traits and behaviors that human beings can display. Now, whatever traits and behaviors you think are bad, they're your wounds. Go work on them. Go heal them. And if you don't, you'll keep getting triggered by them. Oh, I missed this part out as well. What you run away from, you run into. So you're trying to avoid these things. Guess what? You attract them into your life. Because if I tell you, don't look for a yellow bus, what the fuck are you thinking about? A yellow fucking bus. So you're trying to not look for these things because they're painful. Past hurt creates future fear. You're trying to protect yourself from these things, but what you end up doing is attracting them. Have you noticed those words you just wrote down? You keep attracting them into your life, especially your relationships. Interesting. You attract your unhealed trauma into your life until you heal through them. You will attract people and circumstances to reveal where you have not healed. Holy, I've covered a lot of ground today. I hope you got some value from this. So my invitation to you is become aware of when you get triggered. It will be a limiting belief or a trait or behavior, which is trauma. And I would invite you to start to process those. Now, how do you do that? Come work with me, or don't have to work with me. There's heaps of people you can work with. I don't think anyone goes as deep and thorough and efficient as I do. And that's just my biased opinion because I'm fucking good at what I do. If you want to work with someone, I have a free 7-day trial down below. I have a book. If you want to go grab a copy of my book, it's on Amazon. Some of my processes are in here. I have a free 7-day trial to my community. And thank you for your time. I hope you got value. If you got value, please leave your thoughts down below. Please give it a like. Please subscribe and send it to a friend. Send it to someone that you think would get value from this. And if you'd love to work with me, all my details are down below. Copy of my book, a free 7-day trial. I do in-person events. If you're willing to come to the Gold Coast in Australia, I do in-person events. So I'd love to see you there. I hope this was valuable. I appreciate you. Happy 2025. And I'll speak to you soon. See ya.